Good morning. My name's Jeff Wade. I'm the team lead for community outreach in the natural resource industries here in Redlands, California. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar organised in concert with the Esri Petroleum Users Group entitled Explore the Power of Simple Mapping. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the next few days. As a participant, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to that recording. I'm confident that many of you will have attended Esri GoToWebinars in the past, and today we'll follow our normal practice of encouraging you to enter questions as we go along in the GoToWebinar questions dialog box during the presentation. We'll answer as many of those questions as time permits towards the end of the session. As you probably figured out by now, I'll be your MC for the webinar, so now let's go ahead and introduce a couple of our guests that we'll be hearing from today. First, I'm joined by my Esri colleague Cheyenne Hancock, Petroleum Account Manager for Esri, who's in San Antonio, and Mark Smithgill, Solutions Engineer, speaking to us from Houston. It'll also be our great pleasure a little later to introduce you to Becky Alcorn from Huntley Huntley from our office outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who's a recent member of the Appalachian chapter of the Petroleum Users Group. Okay, with introductions complete, let's have a quick look at the agenda today. The material we'll cover was born from several questions raised by the Petroleum Users Group members about the increasing capabilities of ArcGIS Online and Portal and its real capabilities. As many of you will know, ArcGIS Online started life as a repository for base map data that Esri manages, largely on behalf of federal clients and exposes for public use. But over time, it's become so much more. As we discussed the content that we'll cover, we settled on the following agenda. We'll start with a quick reference to some of the more important ArcGIS Online content available today and some of the smart mapping capabilities to help with its cartographic representation. We'll cover capabilities of ArcGIS Online spatial analysis, simple web maps, apps and templates that you can apply to that data. Then we'll have a quick look at Maps for Office and some simple tools that will help you work with spatial data in everyday office applications. Finally, we'll take a quick look at delivering some of that same data to the simplest of our mobile apps, Explorer for ArcGIS. Then, perhaps most interestingly, Becky from Huntley Huntley will discuss how she's applying these capabilities to support some of her everyday workflows. So now I'd like to hand over to my Esri colleague, Cheyenne Hancock, for the main presentation. Cheyenne?
Thanks so much, Jeff. So, good morning, everyone. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Cheyenne Hancock, and I'm an Esri Account Manager, Petroleum and Pipeline, and I'll be taking us through the slide portion of today's webinar. So, when I think about the people who most utilize maps, I think of the GIS power users and the GIS professionals. And in today's landscape, these professionals have a vast array of tools available to them in order to enable sharing and collaboration of GIS data across their organizations. But with the ever-expanding complexities of these systems, we often overlook the capability to enable mapping for those within your organizations that may not use maps daily. Enabling the non-GIS professionals to utilize geospatial data in their daily workflows is a key component to a successful Esri platform deployment. The presentation today will explore some key aspects of the Esri platform, and we'll discuss ways to enable stakeholders within the organization to leverage simple mapping workflows. And we also feel confident that by using the approaches discussed today, you'll be ensured a maximum return on your investment in our technology. So let's get started. One advantage to using the Esri platform is that users never have to start with a blank map. With our ready-to-use maps, members of your organization can focus on their specific business data and then overlay that data onto a wealth of existing data layers. These existing data layers are organized into what we call the Living Atlas. The Living Atlas includes hundreds of map layers that are available out of the box and ready to use. All right, so let's take a closer look at what else is available in the Living Atlas. First, the Living Atlas offers a wide range of reference maps for the context of your work. These maps are built from the best available data from a community of authoritative data providers and presented in multiple cartographic styles. The maps are designed to emphasize different views of our world, from physical to political. Users can choose between a wide range of base maps, ones that best represent the data that they're trying to display. Next, the Living Atlas contains imagery layers, which can be added to any map. And as most of you are aware, imagery often is a critical component to oil and gas analysis and workflows. But for many years, this imagery has only been available from specialized vendors, and frankly, it's very expensive. But today, imagery is now a core part of the Esri technology platform, and it's readily available for use. These image layers enable you to view recent high-resolution imagery for most of the world, lower resolution imagery of the planet, which is updated daily, and also near real-time imagery for parts of the world affected by major events, such as natural disasters. It also includes intelligent layers that enable you to restyle the imagery to highlight specific characteristics, such as healthy vegetation. And a special note is Esri's recent partnership with Digital Globe. This partnership brings both Digital Globe's Vivid and Metro products into the Living Atlas. Now, in addition to base maps and imagery, the Living Atlas includes a set of map layers that describe the many boundaries and places people commonly define themselves by. These are available at many levels of geography, including countries, administrative areas, postal codes, and many more. You can use these layers for simple geographic context or to just aggregate your own data and visualize it on a map. The content from these sources includes items such as wetland boundaries, stream and soil data, shale play, and a whole host of other valuable information that can be leveraged by the oil and gas industry. Now, by combining this rich mapping content with specific business data, the platform gives non-GIS professionals the ability to create their own maps based on their own specific needs. This self-service mapping capability can immediately increase productivity, as well as free up valuable GIS staffing resources. And as a matter of fact, Becky from Huntley Huntley will discuss their real-world experience with this later in the webinar. Users can discover existing content, combine it with existing maps, and then add their own authoritative content to generate useful information products to help aid in their daily work. In order to make self-service mapping more intuitive and user-friendly for non-GIS professionals, we have included in the map-making workflow the concept of smart mapping. Smart mapping analyzes your data and suggests the best way to represent it on the map. This is made possible through algorithms that smart mapping utilizes to then analyze and populate those suggestions, while smart defaults offer the right choices to help you set up many of the map properties. You are then able to further style your maps by accessing the hundreds of settings available in the mapping platform. Now, so far we've covered the benefits of simple mapping within the ArcGIS platform for both GIS professionals and non-GIS professionals. But we also recognize that security of this information and data is a concern for all of our oil and gas customers. With the platform, you can always implement and access up-to-date information on security, privacy, and compliance information, along with updates and alerts. And by implementing the named user security model, you can control how these maps are stored and shared within the portal, or ArcGIS Online. This allows users to maintain their own key maps, share those maps within their appropriate groups, and it allows management of the content within the system. The platform also includes a rich set of administrative features and tools that give you complete control of the content and users within the system. The administrator can assign custom roles and privileges, manage licenses and content, and even view your system's health status so that users have access to the appropriate content within the organization. And another key feature is that it's scalable. Regardless if the platform is designed for 10 or 1,000 users, it's designed to scale. Both from a licensing and IT perspective, you can easily add additional resources to the platform to ensure that its growth matches your organization's adoption rate. This agile approach can be combined as both an on-premise or a cloud-based solution. So now that we've covered self-service mapping within the ArcGIS platform at a high level, Mark is going to show you a demonstration of what it's all about. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Cheyenne. So while my screen loads, we all use many different types of spatial data sets. So these data sets could be coming from a particular department, a particular project, a particular area of operations. So we all have tons of spatial data that we need access to, and we need to control who can see it so we can get the most information out of that data as possible. So let's take a look at Portal so we can see how we can start to create some simple maps from those data sets. I'd like to take a moment to explain the difference between ArcGIS Online, which is cloud-hosted, and Portal, which is downloaded and installed behind your firewall on your own infrastructure. So here in my Portal, there's a few things I'd like to point out. This would be skinned in your own company look and feel. You'd have your company logo and your company colors on here. Second, we have a ribbon of key maps and key applications across the bottom here. So these are the maps and applications that are accessed most frequently by different members of our organization. Maps in 3 clicks or less. And lastly, but certainly not least, identity. So I'm signed in as myself. So this Mark Pug identity allows me access to different data sets. It gives me permissions to publish content and consume content. So this identity carries over to not only the Portal, web maps, and applications I'm about to build, but also other desktop applications and mobile applications, which we'll get to a little later in the webinar. So let's take a look at some groups. I'm a member of these 12 different groups. This is how content is shared throughout an organization. So I could see we have groups for base maps, business intelligence, particular projects, different departments. So you can create as many groups as you want to. So we have a group here for a specific surface water protection project. Let's take a closer look at the Marcellus data group. So when this loads, I can see all the different layers, data sets, web maps, and files that are available to me as a member of this group. So we have about 19 members in this group. So everyone has access to the information contained in here. So we can filter based upon what type of information we want to find. So these are the maps that are available to us, different layers and data sets, and so on and so forth. I can also search my portal as a whole. So I'm going to search for Marcellus operations and see what kind of information I can find. So here it found me 3 different web maps. So I'm going to open this Marcellus operations map that I have created earlier this week. So when this loads, we'll see a pretty typical web map for an oil and gas operation. You can see our leasehold, you can see our wells, and we have a base map with a little bit of a hillshade on top of it. So this is pretty simple. We can add information from different sources here. So I'm going to search my organization for offices and add our field offices to the map. So you could see that about half a dozen different field offices were just added to the map here. So from this point, I can start to symbolize these data sets and symbolize these data to kind of customize it for the role that I need to use it in. So let's symbolize our leases. Now, we have several different variables, several different fields to display here. So let's symbolize by lease days to expiration. So by default, Smart Mapping goes through and finds the type of data we're symbolizing. It analyzes the other colors that are on the map and comes up with an intelligent default for us to start to symbolize our leases with. So as I change the base map, you could see that the leases change according to what Smart Mapping suggests. So let me go back to the dark gray map, and we can start to get in here and really get advanced with some cartography. So we're showing leases by expiration date. So let's classify these data. So we're going to create manual breaks for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, as well as 365 days. So here we could see all the leases that expire 1, 2, 3 or more months into the future. And from this point we can go through and assign some transparency on this as well. So we're going to symbolize on the same field we're symbolizing the leases on, days to expiration, and set high values with a high transparency range and low values with a low transparency range. So what this is going to do is assign a higher transparency value for leases that expire further into the future. So leases that expire soon have a lower transparency value, and they really pop on the map for us. Next, we can go through and start to customize some other symbols. So with the field offices layer I just brought in, we're going to symbolize by just the location here. So we can get in here and adjust the cartography to better suit our needs. So I like the star symbol, but let's make it yellow so we can see it doesn't blend in with the wells. At this point we can go through and add a label as well. So under my field offices we're going to name based upon the field office name. We're going to set the text to be white. At this point we can create bookmarks to return to this view. So I'll just name this area of operations. So as I zoom and pan throughout the map, I can always return to this spatial extent with this bookmark. So next, in my company as well as data set, I know we have some production information. So let's go ahead and filter the wells by whether or not they are producing. So this filter is very similar to a definition query within ArcGIS Desktop. So let's apply the filter, and now we can only see the wells that are currently producing. Not all of our data is in the system. So we work with different spreadsheets and different tabular data sets on a regular basis. So I have a CSV here from our operations department, and they've sourced the latest permits that have been issued for the state of Pennsylvania. So I can drag and drop this onto the map. Go back to full screen here. So at this point we can symbolize these permits by several different variables. Let's go ahead and configure these, symbolize these by configuration. So this is simply going to show us horizontal wells and vertical wells. At this point I can return to my bookmark and see that I have a permit pretty close to my main area of operations here. So let's do some spatial analysis to figure out what kind of impact this might have on our operations. So I'll open my analysis pane here, and within Portal and ArcGIS Online we have dozens of different spatial analysis tools that are available to us. So I'm going to use the Find Nearest tool because I want to find all the different company wells that are near the latest permits. I'm going to change my buffer distance to about 10 miles. Now this tool takes about 2 or 3 minutes to run. So in the interest of time, I'm going to search for a pre-ran tool and add the results to the map. So here I can see we have the latest permit and then all of the wells that are within a 10-mile radius of that. So I'm going to turn off my lines that were added for emphasis. At this point, I know I have some nice pop-ups for our wells, but the information we just added to the map doesn't have as nice of a pop-up. So let's turn off our company wells and configure the pop-up, the results of our spatial analysis. So we'll display a custom attribute display. And again, in the interest of time, I have a pre-formatted pop-up I'm going to copy and paste here. I'd like to point out that the text within brackets here, this is a field that comes from this particular service. So I can search the data set and add the different fields as I need. So as soon as this information is updated, that is immediately reflected in the pop-up. It's very dynamic. I also know that I have some historical production information. So let's add a line chart called historical production. And I can scroll down here and add production over the last 6 months. And click OK. So now when I open the results of my spatial analysis, I can see we have the similar pop-up as our current wells. And if I scroll down, I can get a line chart of the historical production over the last 6 months. At this point, I want to see what other types of data that are available to me. So I'm going to open the Esri Living Atlas. Now we at Esri have been working with different state, federal, and local agencies, as well as nonprofits, to come up with different authoritative data sets that are available to you within the ArcGIS platform. So I can bring in base map imagery, other types of base maps, demographic information coming from the Census Bureau, landscape information coming from USGS and the Energy Information Agency, oceans data, transportation data. All of these are different themes of data that are available to us. So let's search for the Bureau of Land Management and add federal lands to the map. This takes a moment to load, but you can see we have a park down here at the bottom with a nice pop-up we brought in. So we can see this is a National Historical Site. We can't operate anywhere near that. At this point, we brought in information from our portal, from our land department and our operations department. We've dragged and dropped a CSV of new permits. We've run some spatial analysis to figure out all of the wells within a 10-mile radius of those new permits. We brought in information from the Living Atlas so we could see where we cannot operate. Now I need to share this. First I'll save it. I'll call it Marcellus Permits, and now I'll share. So I can share this web map directly back into the different groups that I'm a member of if I have the appropriate permissions. Oftentimes, this web map isn't the best way to share information. So we've come up with different web applications that give us a very specific workflow-based functionality to take what we've created here and skin it in an appropriate template. So our model over the last few months has been configure before customize. So what these templates allow you to do is create a web application without relying on a programmer to write hundreds or thousands of lines of code for us. So I'll call this new application my Marcellus permitting application. And this will launch my web map into a wizard to allow me to configure the appropriate application. So here, when this loads, we can see we already have a web map selected, so we don't need to change that. Under my General tab, I can give this a new title. I'll call this Marcellus Permitting Application, and I can change the color. So when I save these, the changes I just made are reflected immediately into the application. So I can see exactly what is going on when I'm configuring this. Under this Summary Layer tab, this is where the magic starts to happen. So here's where I can select the different variables that I want to summarize. So I'm going to bring in the results of my spatial analysis, and I want to see the production days and the production quantity, as well as the average production quantity in days. And I will turn off clustering. I'm going to save and then launch this application. And this is what the end user feels. So we've taken information, created a summary application, and now when I pan and zoom around the map, you'll notice that the numbers on the bottom here change depending upon my visible extent. So this is a really good way to get a high-level understanding of what's going on with the wells within a 10-mile radius of any kind of new permit. From here, we can share this back to our organization. We can add it to that ribbon of key maps on our portal homepage. With that, I'd like to send it back to Cheyenne.
Thank you, Mark. And also, thanks for highlighting some of the key features of Portal for ArcGIS and the benefits of self-service mapping. The platform also offers a vast array of applications that are tightly integrated with maps. The concept is that the apps are wrapped around the maps, and this allows users to easily access the powerful tools contained within the platform. Creation of applications is now easier than ever, so we can start to move away from that kitchen sink type of web mapping application. You know, the one that tries to include every function for every user, and it ends up becoming a laundry list of layers that most users prefer not to sort through to find what they need. Now we can create a very focused user experience. We can tailor the applications to perform only those functions necessary for that user's workflow. And it's designed so that they can perform their tasks in 3 clicks or less. This 3 clicks or less mentality increases adoption of the technology and places the power of the GIS in the hands of more individuals within the organization. So, as you can see on this slide, we organize the applications into 3 distinct categories: field, office, and community outreach. The field applications cover the full range of tasks that a mobile workforce would need. It includes the ability to track work, navigate to locations, for example, from one well pad to another, and also to capture authoritative content right at the source. The office applications extend the reach of the GIS beyond the traditional desktop GIS tools. These enable office workers to consume mapping information into business solutions that they use daily and enhance those workflows through geography. The community applications allow users to present their maps to a wider audience, both within and outside their organization. Out of the array of applications we just looked at, what we would like to highlight today is ArcGIS Maps for Office. Maps for Office allows users to consume the content from the platform directly within Microsoft Office applications, such as Excel and PowerPoint. This brings the power of the maps to the application so that the business users use it every day. Now, for example, by visualizing Excel data on a map, we can gain critical insights to this business data, which often tells a dramatically different story. If you think about looking at well pads and corresponding production data in an Excel spreadsheet, what types of trends or patterns are not being observed simply because the spatial analysis component is missing? Viewing data on the map instead of in a table or graph can unlock key spatial relationships between data sets and bring valuable insights to the organization. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Mark so that he can actually demonstrate ArcGIS Maps for Office. Mark?
Thank you, Cheyenne. All right. So here I am in Excel. We've all used Excel before. It's super popular. This is an awesome way to take tabular information and then make some sense out of that. But oftentimes, locked in this spreadsheet are clues or spatial information that we can't get to when we view it in this table format. So we have an add-in, ArcGIS Maps for Office, that allows us to take this tabular information, map it, and then either publish it to our portal, as well as consume information that already exists on our portal. So first I'm going to sign in. Now this grabs my same MarkPug identity that I used a few minutes ago to create the web map. This allows me the certain permissions that I need to both publish content and consume content. It reads the different groups that I'm a member of. Now let's go ahead and add a map. So when this loads, the Maps for Office add-in actually goes through and parses this data set, parses this table to come up with a good way of starting to display this information. Now in this case, I'm lucky enough to have coordinate information here. If I did not have coordinate information, I could use some sort of unique identifier, such as an API number or unique ID, to link to the authoritative location by way of a locator service that my GIS team sets up. So if I had a locator service for company wells, I could link to that via the API number. So I'll cancel out of that and go back to adding this tabular information. So this is a waste report. So let's go ahead and symbolize based upon waste quantity. So here the wizard suggests several different ways of symbolizing the data set. So I'm going to leave the default symbolizing by colors and amounts. So I'm going to add the data to the web map here. So you can see that we've added this tabular data to the map. When I click on a pop-up, I get the same interactive pop-up as I got within Portal. I can select different rows. I can see exactly where they are. So if I go down here, I can change the waste quantity here to 10,000, for example, and that's going to immediately make a change on the map here. So I'll click another example so we could see. So here, we only have about 1,000 gallons of waste. I can make a change, and that's immediately reflected on our spreadsheet. All right, so now I can share the results of this back to my portal. So I can share this back to individual groups, the groups that I'm a member of and the groups that I have permissions to share content to, and I can also consume content. So I'm going to search my portal for leases. And we're going to bring leases into our web map here. From here, we can change the base map to better suit our needs. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see. At this point, I can search and add wells. So we can add our company wells and offices or what other type of data set I have access to in the portal. So if I want to present this map, I can do this in several ways. Of course, I mentioned we can share this back to our portal, but we can also create a PowerPoint slide. And that's going to take essentially a screenshot of the web map we're here. So here we are in PowerPoint. You can see it's added a a static image of the web map I was just creating. So now let's add a new slide. And I'm going to go to my ArcGIS Maps tab. I'm already signed in, and let's add a dynamic map. So once again, it reads my identity. It realizes the different maps and data sets that I have access to as a member of my organization. And let's add the Marcellus Permits web map I just created a few minutes ago. Here I can choose the different layers that I want to symbolize on the map. It goes through and reads all the different content to see what I want to be made available within the dynamic map. So I won't make any changes here. And this wizard will guide me through what I need to do to add a map. So I won't make any changes to the legend either. And I want my map to take up the entire slide. Here I can confirm the initial extent of our web map, and I'll click Insert. So now, when I go back to the home page, first slide rather, and start my presentation, I can advance through my presentation. I can see the static map that I added from Excel. And when I progress to the next slide, I can see we have a static image of the web map we just added. In the upper right, left rather, I'm going to unlock the map, and it's going to load this dynamic web map directly into my PowerPoint presentation without me leaving that PowerPoint presentation. This takes a moment to load. We can see the features start to pop up here. We have the same control over our web map in PowerPoint as we do in Portal. So when I click on the different features, I get the same interactive pop-ups. I can see the same chart in them. What's going on here? I can see all the different content that was available to me within Portal in my PowerPoint presentation without having to leave that presentation. I think that's pretty cool. From here, I'd like to send it back to Cheyenne, who can discuss a third way of displaying and sharing simple web maps.
Thanks, Mark. So far, we've looked at accessing maps through a browser with self-service mapping, and, as Mark just showed, integrating maps with back-office solutions such as ArcGIS Maps for Office, like Excel and PowerPoint. But now let's take a look at delivering that same data to some of the applications that are specific to your mobile workforce. The platform includes a suite of mobility applications tailored to specific field use cases. So whether you're just viewing a map, managing work, capturing data, or monitoring those activities, there's a specific application designed to do just that. Well, let's start with our workforce application then. Workforce helps you manage fieldwork assignments in a geographic context. Assignments are sent from a dispatcher, received by a worker in the mobile application, and then status of that assignment is submitted and tracked by both the worker and the dispatcher. Some great examples of usage for workforce for ArcGIS and oil and gas is valve inspections and one-call ticket workflows. Now from those work assignments, we can link to the Navigator application. And as the name implies, Navigator enables turn-by-turn directions to any location, including both commercial streets and integration of your own custom road networks, such as private lease roads or access roads to well pads. Now, once the field users reach their destination, we have two applications that focus on capturing data in the field. The Collector application, which is a map-centric capturing tool, and Survey 123, which is a more form-centric experience for the end user. And Becky with Huntley Huntley will actually discuss her usage of one of these apps later in the presentation. We also include in the data capture suite our Drone to Map product, which allows us to process raw images from an aerial drone and then generate both 2D and 3D information products. To monitor all of these activities described, we utilize the Operations Dashboard. It's an application that allows you to view the progress of all ongoing field activities. But often, we simply want to view maps when we're out of our office environment. The Explorer for ArcGIS application allows anyone in the organization to access maps from the platform on their mobile device. So let's take a closer look at Explorer for ArcGIS. As I mentioned, it's designed for those mobility workflows that require read-only access to the maps. Explorer lets you interact with your organization's maps and data no matter where you are. Whether you're a seasoned GIS professional or have no prior GIS knowledge, you can become immediately productive with the app to make more informed decisions. The user can easily share, search, find, and mark up those maps. And then even those markups can be shared within the organization. So we'll turn it back to Mark so that he can show us another demonstration specifically for ArcGIS Explorer.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Okay, so while this loads, as Cheyenne just explained, we have a full suite of mobile applications that are available to us. Today, let's take a look at Explorer. So right off the bat, when I log in, I'd like to see that I have my same Mark Pug identity. So I'd like to reiterate, this is the same identity that I used to sign into my portal. This is the same identity that I used within Excel to create content and consume content, and the same identity within PowerPoint to view web maps in a PowerPoint presentation. So content, again, is shared through that identity. So let's take a look. It's very interactive. Let's take a look at some of the different groups that I'm a member of. So I have the same 12 or so groups that I had within Portal. Let's take a look at the Marcellus data. So this group, I can see we only have one web map in here ready to go. So I can go back to the default page here and find different favorites or other maps that I have created. So let's go ahead and add the Marcellus Permits web map within Explorer here. So this is the same web map we created a few minutes ago. So when this loads, this should look pretty familiar. So we have our leasehold, we have our field offices, our permits, the latest permits, as well as the wells that we have within a 12-mile radius of those permits. So when I click on features, I can get an interactive pop-up. This is the same pop-up that we had within our portal. When I close out of here and click on a lease pop-up, you can see we have the production information, and I can scroll over and get a chart, that same line chart that we made a few minutes ago, without leaving the application. So this is a very dynamic way of consuming content from our portal on a mobile device, wherever I happen to be. So if I want to check the production information first thing in the morning, I don't have to jump out of bed and fire up a computer and log in through VPN. I can go to Explore for ArcGIS, open the appropriate web map, and start to click around until I can find the information that I need. And with that, I'd like to send it back to Cheyenne.
Thank you, Mark. Now, hopefully, through the series of demonstrations performed by Mark today, you've gained some insight into how various parts of the ArcGIS platform can make an impact and prove beneficial to your overall operations. And all of this is made possible through the concept of simple mapping. Now, what we'd like to do now is turn it over to Becky to discuss how Huntley Huntley made a fairly recent decision to invest in the ArcGIS platform and the success that she's seen with her portal for ArcGIS deployment. Becky?
Thank you, Cheyenne. As Cheyenne said, I'm Becky Alcorn, and I'm the GIS Manager at Huntley Huntley Energy Exploration in Southwest Pennsylvania. To start, I wanted to give a brief overview of what I will cover in my portion of the webinar. First, I will give you an overview of the growth and development of our GIS department over the last 5 years. Then I will explain why we chose the ArcGIS platform. And finally, I will give you a walkthrough of our portal for ArcGIS, including our homepage, a web map example, a web application example, a collector for ArcGIS mobile application example, and our operations dashboard. Huntley Huntley is a 105-year-old consulting company. 5 years ago, we developed the company Huntley Huntley Energy Exploration and started acquiring land with the intention to drill shale plays. At that time, our mapping department was limited to a CAD system, and our land department was really just starting to take shape. Anything related to our land data was stored on multiple spreadsheets on various computers. In 2014, I began working at Huntley Huntley. At this time, I was given the opportunity to bring all of our data into ArcGIS. Since I had never set up a GIS system from scratch for a company before, I started by simply organizing all of our data into file geodatabases stored in a central location. After a few months, Land Administration and I recognized there was a large disconnect in making sure the land data and GIS data talked. In the beginning of 2015, we decided to use Google Docs to pull all of the land data into one central location that could be shared and edited with multiple users at the same time. We worked directly together to make sure the data was organized in a way that allowed for a direct join to our GIS feature class to update our maps. The simple act of bringing our two worlds together impressed our executive team. They now had regularly updated data and worked directly with me to update their planning and pull land statistics spatially. In May of 2015, I attended the EnerGIS conference and saw a big movement in the power of creating a web mapping system. I briefed our executive team on what I had learned, and they were in full support of me pursuing the idea of a web map. They empowered me to participate in more training and courses to get a better understanding. By the end of 2015, in the beginning of 2016, I had taken the Esri course, Building Geodatabases, and participated in an Esri seminar very similar to this that demonstrated the power of the ArcGIS platform. From what I had learned from both courses, I knew there would be major GIS and company-wide benefits to implementing an enterprise geodatabase and web mapping system. In the beginning of 2016, I set up demonstrations with various companies that enabled web mapping capabilities for our executive team to see. They agreed with the benefits the ArcGIS platform would bring to our company, and we moved to purchase the platform in the summer of 2016. In order to make Portal as powerful as we could, we also transferred all of the land data from Google Docs into a SQL table stored in our GIS database. This eliminated the need for joins and trying to maintain regular updates. This allowed us to have a live feed from the land data with the use of spatial views. Once our land data was in the database, I began publishing all of our data to Portal and building and developing land web maps and applications which transformed how our company is utilizing our data. This year, we are looking to purchase a land software package that will better maintain our land data, but will still be able to connect to our feature classes through spatial views. We have also added ops and midstream divisions to our team, and we are beginning to assess how Portal can be used to serve their needs. Our driving factor towards buying a web mapping system was to give everyone in the company access to up-to-date data and the power to see the attributes feeding the maps. Through our education in researching different web mapping software and implementing the ArcGIS platform, we came to see many more benefits. I narrowed it down to my top 4 for choosing the ArcGIS platform. First, it benefited our GIS department. Although we're small, purchasing the platform gave us the ability to edit features at the same time, which was a huge deal for us. Prior to, if we needed to edit something in the same file geodatabase, we had to kick the other user out, which quickly became frustrating. It also improved our collaboration. We know what data is true now and have become better organized as a department. One of the most important things to me is that we spend less time formatting and making paper maps for other employees and spend more time actually maintaining our data now. Second, everyone saw a huge improvement from the limitations of paper maps. Portal provides an authoritative source of information. Previously, we had employees coming to us with out-of-date maps asking questions that were no longer relevant since the data had been updated. It provides the company with real-time access to our changes as well. As soon as we change a unit or update a wellbore, the entire company is seeing it. They no longer have to wait for paper maps to be released to see how the change impacts them. It also gives users the ability to view the data behind the maps. Too often we were asked why something was colored the way it was. With Portal, the user can now see the attributes that are behind the shape. It also provides users the ability to view overlapping layers and really see what is going on. I no longer have to explain that that parcel is not orange, it is pink, indicating a certain competitor with yellow stripes over top of it, meaning we won it in a trade. Third, it empowers non-GIS employees with GIS functions. Non-GIS employees can now edit and maintain attribute information about specific layers. We found that more often than not, employees had information stored in their heads that they wanted seen on the maps, but wouldn't inform our GIS department. They now have the power to help maintain the information and populate the maps without destroying our feature classes. They can also run their own spatial analytics with user-friendly tools managed by the GIS department. Portal gives them the power to create their own maps, and they no longer have to wait for us. Finally, Portal has improved communication company-wide with everyone having real-time data at their fingertips. Everyone is looking at the same data together and sharing the same information. So to show you what our portal looks like, I have taken a snapshot of our Huntley Huntley homepage. I have added our top applications and web maps to our feature access bar. This has been everyone's primary way of navigating through Portal. The quick click to open an app or map has been ideal. I have also recently added quick links for our users on the homepage, since this is where they like to start working from the most. I am beginning to introduce the Excel add-in that Cheyenne and Mark talked about and have provided a quick link to the download page. I also created a quick guide to show users how to upload their own shapefiles to Portal, since that has been a common question over the last few weeks. Most recently, I created a project tracker. Since we are starting to expand beyond land, I have developed bi-weekly meetings with each group and have generated a list of all of their requests. This will allow them to see the ongoing requests and where theirs is in the queue. Diving into our portal, I wanted to first show you our web map for land. This was the initial driving force in purchasing a web mapping software. This map includes all of the layers we showed in our paper overview map that hung in everyone's offices. My initial goal was for everyone to have real-time access to the data in this map and see the information and layers behind it. This map allows exactly that. Everyone in the company sees the changes real-time. They can turn individual layers on and off, and they can view the attributes on each layer. Publishing this web map in Portal was groundbreaking for our company, but I knew from everything I'd seen from Esri we could do even more. Since the release of the web map, I have started building specific applications geared towards different groups. This application was developed for our legal department. From our land administration SQL table, I created a spatial view of all of our leases that included all of her information regarding title orders. The view is symbolized by the type of abstract the legal department ordered. They can also view which company they ordered with. This empowered them to be able to order title with the same company in the same areas. Probably the most powerful part of this application is that they can now select and buffer a wellbore, and from there select all of the leases that intersect it. They can then export this to Excel and assess if title still needs ordered on any leases, and if it does, they can place that order with our land administration team. Prior to this application, when our legal department needed to order title under the wellbores in our upcoming drill plans, they had no way of knowing which leases were under which laterals, unless they sat with our department for hours. By building this simple tool, it saves both departments time and resources. We have also added a query tool so that the legal department can search outstanding title orders that have not come in yet and other similar filters. Another application I have recently published is for our land and midstream groups. As I said, our midstream team recently started in the last few months, and we've had some growing pains. When they first began planning their preliminary routes, they were drawing lines they thought best based solely on Google Earth imagery. They would then send a KMZ around to both the midstream and land groups and ask for opinions. This led to multiple variations of the same line being created by multiple people and no one viewing or agreeing upon the same line. This miscommunication led to some costly mistakes where one team knew information that could have saved the other. In hearing all of the miscommunication, I developed an application that could be used on users' desktops or in the Collector mobile app that could solve this issue. The goal with the application is to give everyone a single location in which they can draw as many possible pipeline routes as they want with imagery, land use information, and our well plans and existing pipelines to get from point A to point B. Everyone can see everyone else's lines being added in the same place and can edit and adjust them as need be. Once a route is agreed upon and surveyed, our GIS department takes over to put it into a permanent feature class that cannot be edited by anyone but our GIS department. Our midstream team plans to optimize this application in the field to collect points as they do preliminary field surveys to compare and adjust the routes drawn on the desktop application as well. This is a fairly simple app that took me no time to build, but is already starting to improve communication between the departments. Most recently, I have been working on building out an operations dashboard for land. Since our company is growing and there are more demands, our executive team has asked if there is a quick and simple way for them to view our company stats on a live dashboard. In the last week or so, I have begun using the Portal Operations Dashboard app to do so. My snapshot here shows two quick statistics I have pulled together for them. On the left, you can see I pulled from our land administrations table the number of leases by status. This gives our executive team a quick look at how our leases are divided. In the middle, I have developed an expirations query. Our land administration group is constantly asked for the same expiration reports over and over. As soon as she makes one, everyone seems to lose it or delete it. This allows our executive team to pick a year and quickly see how many leases are expiring and how much acreage that includes. They can then scroll down below and look at the individual leases if necessary and view them on the map to the right. Our executive team is already excited by this operations dashboard example, and they are gearing up to come up with more statistics they want measured. We have been fortunate enough to have the support of our executive team, and the more we show to them, the more they want. With their support, our GIS department and the ArcGIS Platform have become an indispensable part of our company. We have just begun to scratch the surface of what the ArcGIS Platform can provide for our company, but have already seen a significant return on our investment. I want to thank Cheyenne and the Esri team for all of their support. They have been amazing to work with, and now I'll kick it back over to Cheyenne.
Thank you so much, Becky, and we really want to say thanks from the Esri team as well for sharing your story today. You know, I think here at Esri what stands out to us most about Becky is the fact that early on she recognized the challenges that Huntley and Huntley were facing due to the lack of authoritative content available, their inability to manage and share that content, and that these multiple sources of truth were causing severe inefficiencies. And Becky knew she needed a solution, and she's really embraced the concept of affecting change and gaining organizational efficiencies by leveraging the ArcGIS platform. As she discussed just now, she started by establishing their portal as the go-to place for authoritative data and content. She then extended simple mapping capabilities to her non-GIS members of the org, and this cut way back on the time she spent, the time the GIS team had to spend on these requests. And then she took it a step further, and she identified key areas where mobile applications are going to revolutionize Huntley & Huntley's field workflows. So needless to say, we're really excited to see where the next year takes us with Becky and her projects. Our goal today in this webinar is to have each of you take away at least one portion that you'll foresee will be valuable to your organization. And if you're wondering how to bring these capabilities into your organization, we do have a roadmap that helps get you started. It's a guide called Launching Your Location Platform. We have the cover of the guide up on the slide deck here, and if you'll notice at the bottom left of the screen, we do have a link that will take you directly to the guide. If you're trying to feverishly write it down, don't worry, we can send it to you directly. If you would like this link, feel free to email me at shancock@esri.com, and we can send you the guide. Now, we're drawing close to the top of the hour, and as promised, we want to address some of the questions that came in. And so with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Jeff to wrap it up with questions.
Hey, thanks, Cheyenne, and thanks my colleagues and Becky for participating in this webinar. There have been quite a few questions come in, and I've kind of been passing them out to various members of the team. We haven't got a lot of time, so let's get going. Mark, I passed a couple to you. Let's start with you on some techie questions. Does everyone need to be a named user to use ArcGIS Online or Portal if they deploy it behind their firewall?
Thanks, Jeff. So yes, identity is crucial. So that named user identity is how privileges are set and permissions are given. So without having a unique identity within the system, you cannot control who has access to what or who can edit what. So long story short, yes.
Okay, let's skip on to another couple of the technical questions I passed you. How about ArcGIS Online capabilities and access to the data that we saw in the context of desktop ArcGIS users? So they can get access to all that ArcGIS Online content for use in desktop, yes?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So Pro was designed for much tighter integration with your portal, ArcGIS Online, than ArcMap is. But you can still absolutely consume services via ArcMap as well.
There was a related data question that came in about BLM data and its availability in state data. So of course there's quite a bit of BLM data available care of the Living Atlas, but it's my belief that the state oil and gas data is not at this stage a commitment from Esri to compile, and it wouldn't be the same as they can get from commercial data providers, but there is quite a lot of BLM data that you're a little bit familiar with, yeah?
Yes. Yep. So we work with many federal agencies such as the BLM to make their authoritative data available. Unfortunately, we don't have as good of a commitment with commercial data vendors such as different state oil and gas commissions at this time.
Okay. Let's go over to Becky. Becky, if you're still with us, how long did it take you to get going with the environment? You kind of described that, but is it I think what's lying behind some of the questions that are coming in is, can people expect to get going in a month or 3 months, or?
So we actually had our Jumpstart week. An Esri representative came out and trained me for a week on this in the end of June. And unfortunately, right after that, our company started doubling in size, and I lost our other GIS employees, so it got put on the back burner for us. And I picked it up again full force in December, and I've pretty much built everything since then. So it is very user-friendly, and it's very quick for me to publish and create maps and apps for everyone.
Okay, so thanks, Emily. Becky, rather. Back over to Mark. When you dragged and dropped the Excel spreadsheet into the Marcellus operations map, did you have to prepare that in some way, or is it just ready to go?
It's ready to go as long as there's some sort of unique identifier in each row. So that unique identifier can either be some sort of like a unique ID or well API number, or if I have different columns for location. So that column can be, in the example I showed that was lat and longs, we can map based upon zip codes or street addresses. We have several different ways to geocode information depending upon what type of workflow you're working on.
Okay, two more quick questions and then we'll sign off. ArcPy integration. If people are writing ArcPy, how do they integrate custom scripts that maybe they've written with ArcPy and configure them to work with Portal and web maps?
So that's probably going to have to be taken on a case-by-case basis. I don't know what different nodes of ArcPy are being used. Oftentimes you can set up either custom geoprocessing services with ArcGIS Enterprise if that were the case. But as far as custom ArcPy scripts, I think we're going to have to take that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so last one, offline caching ability with Navigator. I think even I know the answer to this one. So certainly Navigator works offline, right? You mentioned it.
Absolutely. Yep. So Navigator and Collector are designed to be used offline right now. Right now we're working to make Explorer offline capable in addition.
Okay, terrific. All right, well, it's 2 minutes past on my clock, so I'd like to remind people that I think that's all that we have time for today. There'll be a short survey that'll pop up right after the webinar ends. We'd very much appreciate your feedback and suggestions in designing future webinars. We'd like to thank you for joining us today for this Petroleum webinar. We hope you found it useful and informative, and we'll send you an email with a link to the recording shortly afterwards so that you can watch it at your leisure or share it with colleagues. Thank you for your attention today. Have a great day. Thanks very much.